and greetings, colleagues and everyone. So my name is Hugh Mclean. I'm South African, actually, gone astray for a bit in London. So I'm in a dark, cold place in more ways than one. So, comrades and colleagues, it gives me a great honor to address your 9th Africa Students and Youth Summit. I believe it's also your first virtual summit. I do so with humility and respect, but also I think in a spirit of hope and optimism. We're certainly in troubled times, not only of COVID-19, but also climate change, ongoing conflict, significant internal migration, population displacement. I'd like to congratulate you on the previous 8 summits. I'm not sure about the history where the first one started. I think maybe Ghana 2009, but we're looking forward to those and the future ones. But I wanted us to think briefly about 3 other summits today. And the ones I have in mind are not like the ones I've just mentioned. They might be very different from one another, but what they share in common are retreating glaciers and mists, declining biodiversity, a diminishing power as water towers and breadbaskets for the lowlands. I'm talking, of course, about Africa's 3 highest mountains, and the only ones that are above 5,000 meters. Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, Mount Kenya in Kenya, of course, and Mount Rwenzori on the border of DRC and Uganda. As dangerous and high as they are, I'd like to speak about them because people have climbed them. So what are the mountains we need to climb in the virtual room, every discussion in this plenary? Well, we've been invited to consider education on the brink of collapse and finding sustainable financing power to protect education. This suggests to me at least 3 equally high summits to scale. I'm calling these Mount Struggle for Democracy, Mount Debt, and Mount Climate Change. These are the 3 summits that I believe will be in every virtual room of the summit. And like elephants in the room, they're going to be there whether we speak about them or not. So our first mountain then, Mount Struggle for Democracy, aka the question of political power. The BTI Transformation Index Bertelsmann of 2020, looking from 2017 to 2019, comes to the grand conclusion for Africa that plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose. So it might be true that the transitions we saw in Angola in 2017, Ethiopia, South Africa, and Zimbabwe in 2018, Sudan 2019 brought very little actual change. Less true perhaps for Ethiopia, although we need to be watching the Tigray war. But in 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic really began to give us a glimpse, I think, of the nature of African democracies. Zimbabwe and Uganda, as we've seen, using the pandemic as ways of clamping down on the opposition. And there were shootings and killings to enforce lockdowns in Kenya, Nigeria, and Zimbabwe, and I heard of some in South Africa. And as we watched the spectacle of the US election results and President Trump behaving badly, Tanzania, Guinea, and Ivory Coast are simmering in the aftermath of their elections. Senegal, I have to say, set what I believe was a world-leading example, following science and consulting with teachers' unions during the early months of the pandemic. All these events show us that democracy is something we can never take for granted and that we have to fight to preserve it. We're also seeing ongoing conflicts in the Sahel from jihadist organizations and their hallmark attacks on education, and worrying developments in Cabo Delgado province in Mozambique. I mentioned the Tigray conflict, and of course, Somalia continues its decades-long civil war. Our second mountain then is Mount Finance, which, like Mount Kenya, has at least 3 peaks: debt, terms of world trade, poverty and inequality. The Institute of Health and Metrics and Evaluation from Washington University estimates that extreme poverty went up 7% in just the first few months of COVID-19 in Africa. This tragically ended what was an unbroken 20-year-on-year trend towards poverty alleviation. The World Bank projects that at least 43 million people in Africa are now at risk of severe poverty as a result of the economic crisis brought on by the pandemic. And the IMF predicts that between now and 2023, Africa faces a 1.2 trillion in financing needs, and of this, 410 billion at least will go to paying off debts. Foreign debts by 2023. We must expect this to put huge pressure on budgets for health and education, particularly, but all budgets. Our third mountain is Mount Climate Change. Africa has taken great steps to drive and implement the global climate agenda. Very high levels of ratification of the Paris Agreement. Over 90% of governments have signed, and they've also promised to go green in a relatively short time frame. These are good intentions, but they're sure to be disrupted by the economic fallout in the post-COVID phase. In terms of the real indicators, what we're seeing is continuing rising temperatures. 2019 was the warmest on record for Africa. We can expect a lot less rainfall in southwest Africa and in the north, and there's likely to be increased intense rainfall over the Sahel. You'll remember the intensive flooding that affected 700,000 people this September in Niger. We also saw Tropical Cyclone Gati, which made landfall in Somalia in November. This is the strongest cyclone ever recorded in the region. We can expect to see rising sea levels and coastal erosion, and inevitably food security will be impacted. The number of undernourished people in Africa has increased by 45% since 2012, according to FAO. And finally, comrades, I think you'll notice that I don't mention a mountain demographics as something that needs to be overcome. Africa's hope is its youth, but there will be enormous population pressures, doubling probably by 2015. And this will mean for education, as we all know, that we have to run in order just to stand still. So forgive me if I've, in this short address, been short on solutions. I hope we'll be looking at those and that the rest of the panelists will come in on that. But even if I knew the answers, I don't think you really need to hear them from a 60-something-year-old white guy sitting in London. I do believe we will find them, and find them you must, not only for Africa, but for the planet. And for this, you'll need strong organizations and strong partnerships. So I would just like to leave you with 3 things that I believe are crucial prerequisites for finding sustainable financing that will protect education. The first is how to build Asys membership and its internal democracy, and how to, that means identify and bring in new members. Secondly, how to build alliances, particularly with teachers' unions in Africa, to find your common causes, to share your struggles, and to look forward to the victories that you will win together. And lastly, the thing I think that's going to be important is how ASU can take a confident lead and find and offer solidarity in the student movement globally through your membership of the Global Student Forum, but also the other alliances that you build. So these are the mountains that I believe we need to climb now in the summit, and that we will have to scale between this and your next summit. And I look forward to your leadership in this period, and I salute your leadership for your efforts. So thank you very much.